What's good, everybody? It's your boy, motherfucking Time Weaver, back at it again with another motherfucking video. Tapping in to talk about why the mind dwells on, experiences that are recently had, or experiences that the mind may have went through and shit like that, right? All it is a person may dwell on an experience that happened to them, or an event that they recently went through and stuff like that. It's all just based upon how much time and how much energy we spend within that experience, we spend within that space. Because wherever you spend your time and energy into, you also bring that experience with you. So if, let's say you experienced an event, right? Or let's say, you went through a circumstance and situation. Let's say you're talking to someone, blah, 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 right? Now, whatever amount of time you spend in that, that's also as much as time you're gonna need to spend to get out of that. So let's say, for example, I'm at work and I interacted with someone that, doesn't have a purpose. They're not on the spiritual path. They're just kind of like on 3D density. They're kind of like into survival, blah, blah, right? When I spend a lot of time and energy with that person, or just spend a lot of time in general receiving the influence and shit like that, that's going to be stuff that's going to be on my mind as a substance, as a content and shit like that, right? And the more time you spend in spaces and places with people doing things that, whatever it may be, that's going to be things that stick with your mind and stuff like that. It's going to be stuff that you might think about, stuff that a person might ponder on about and stuff like that, right? Now, a lot of these experiences that we have, a lot of these things used to be a waste of space on our mind. Because again, like, let's say, for example, a cup is full of water, then it's too full to receive any form of new water and stuff like that, right? So a lot of the times people experience these experiences in their lives, and it could just be simple things as like your day-to-day work, or it could be just as hardcore as, traumatic childhood experiences and stuff like that, right? That lead to some form of like psychological conditioning. Now, that energy that a person absorb from that experience, from that space that they're interacting with, is going to be something that they carry with them for a long time until they decide, okay, it's time to let that thing go. So it can play out in different ways. It can play out as like childhood traumatic events where you may be psychologically conditioned to operate in a particular way, like too structured and too restricted in a particular pattern. So those experiences kind of like shape who you are, like your self-image and stuff like that. Or it can play out like as in just, okay, day-to-day experiences. Let's say you interact with someone, and let's say you don't even like this person, but you're just being nice, blah, blah, right? The more time and energy you spend with that person, the more that experience is going to be on your mind and stuff like that, right? And then it's going to be like something that you slowly and surely have to detach from, so you can get out of that mental bubble, and then you can go into like some type of new bubble. Hopefully that new bubble is actually some form of newness, because a lot of the times, like, a lot of the stuff that we have on our mind just be stuff that has to do with like old, outdated experiences, substances, shit that a person should have gotten out of, but it's just like, but it's based upon how much energy work a person is willing to put in. Because at the end of the day, it's all about energy work. If a person is interacting with those experiences on their mind, and they're constantly like going back and forth about what was the meaning behind that experience, or what was that experience, blah, 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 that's still them kind of arguing against. It doesn't matter if you argue against it or for it, that existence, that thought, that feeling is still, you're adding more energy to it. You're kind of like prolonging its lifespan on the mind and stuff like that, right? So, just that's ideally, people that into spirituality, I wonder if you have a purpose. Ideally, it's like, okay, it's preferred not to interact with too many people in the human world, just because, like, if their mind is too busy under 3D density, they're going to be giving you these thoughts and feelings. So they're going to be projecting, self-reflecting that paradigm onto you. And again, if you're spiritually aware and you got a sense of direction and stuff like that, that might kind of dilute that sense of direction and shit like that. So your spirit might spend time in that space instead of just going out of that space and creating a new rotation in another space and stuff like that, right? So yeah, it's like whatever experiences we have, whatever time and energy we put in these things, that's going to be just as much time and energy that you're going to have to put in to get out of these things. And that goes to day-to-day interactions. That's why with me personally, like, I got to do better and better in this area, because a lot of the times, like, the people around me just have this like poverty, begging, needy mentality, and the more time that I spend around people like that, it's like that starts to imprint on my own mind, meaning like I start to adapt that psychological blueprint, and I can start to play that out in my life. So it's like you got to be really careful. Not a lot of these thoughts and feelings on your mind, these embedded awarenesses, don't be shit that's actually benevolent. It be shit that's like keeping you stuck here in the third dimension and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? AKA the spirit being trapped in some type of mental form, in a mentality, in a way of thinking, in a way of feeling that may not manifest the best circumstances, situations that a person may ideally look for, but because it's so familiar, a person may decide like, you know what, this is who they are. But not like the spirit is not thoughts and feelings. It's not a mind. It create thoughts and feelings. It create a mind. It create conscious forms of awareness, but we're none of these things. And the more we can learn we are not these thoughts and feelings, we are not these everyday experiences that we are interacting. Because a lot of the times these experiences, when you're a child, can shape your self-image and your identity. But when you grow up, these experiences can play, these people, places, and things that we relate to, you know what I'm saying, can play out of some type of like psychological blockage where we're dealing with some type of mental interloper from someone else and shit like that. So you want to be just really careful and really aware of, you know, who you interact with from your day to day. Because again, it's gonna affect your energy in some way, shape, or form and stuff like that, right? And yeah, but it's interesting because let's say you do have a really good energy field. Let's say you do really got a good atmosphere around you. It's like the more spiritually healthy you are, since we live in a world where people are basically psychologically, mentally ill and stuff like that, people are going to want to spend more energy and time in your space because what you're producing as thoughts and feelings may be way more healthier, way more lighter, way more on point, just way more clear than the lack of clarity, the darkness that they may have on their mind. But if you're at that point, what I recommend to do is you got to monetize that shit. Because like, if people are benefiting from being around you, you got to charge money for that shit. Because at the end of the day, like, you're producing a resource mentally by ensuring that your spirit is in a healthy space. And that healthy space allows you to, you know, become resourceful and share these resources with other people. But it shouldn't be for free. You should charge for your time, but you have to be valuable first and shit like that. But yeah, let's not go too deep into that. I was just talking about, like, you know what I'm saying, how the spirit dwell in certain time and spaces and start to create those realities and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, you know what I'm saying, that's kind of why the spirit, or, you know, the observer kind of dwells on experiences it recently had or experiences that it had like a long time ago type shit. With that being said, Time Weaver out, motherfucker.